Hello and a very warm welcome to Rajya Sabha Television with me, Frank Pereira. The Narendra Modi government replaced the Planning Commission, which was set up in 1950, with NITI Aayog on the 1st of January 2015. The new policy body, which is serving as a think tank, is tasked with the role of formulating policies and direction for the government. According to the resolution of the Union Cabinet for setting up the NITI Aayog, the body is responsible to recommend a national agenda, including strategic and technical advice on elements of policy and economic matters. It also develops mechanisms for village-level plans and aggregates these progressively at higher levels of government. While the NITI Aayog has been set up with an aim to foster and enhance the centre-state cooperation, the opposition parties criticize the body, saying that the replacement of Planning Commission could be best viewed only as a cosmetic change. 2 years since its inception, we'll take stock of the hits and the misses of the NITI Aayog. Joining me on this edition of The Big Picture are Mr. N.C. Saxena, former Secretary, Planning Commission; Mr. S.K. Jindal, Chairman, ASSOCHAM Investment and Capital Markets; Gopal Krishna Agarwal, the National Spokesperson of the BJP; and Priya Ranjan, who's a senior journalist. Thank you so much, gentlemen, for joining me on this edition of The Big Picture. Mr. Saxena, I'd like to start with you, of course, and ask you, 2 years on, are you happy with where NITI Aayog is today?
Well, I think NITI Aayog is still in infancy. It is still trying to find out what its role should be and how it can be done. The role of think tank is not an easy one. You have to be aware of all the constraints and why program delivery is not taking place, and then be in touch with professional organizations and then give suggestions to the state governments and Government of India. That role has still not been performed by NITI Aayog. So therefore, I would say that perhaps we should give them some more time. The other important point is that any think tank has to be slightly distant from government. I have been finding that the members and vice chairman of NITI Aayog have been defending government on all issues. That is the role of the Ministry of Information, Visual Publicity or PMO. If that role is to be done by the think tank, then there is a conflict between justifying government and giving advice to government on the right kind of issues. So I don't feel very comfortable with NITI Aayog giving its justifying government on all issues, controversial issues especially. Also at the same time, Planning Commission was also not doing very well because of two factors. One, that these members of the Planning Commission were generally defeated politicians, had no interest in academic knowledge or in finding out why things are not working well. And even officers who were posted in the Planning Commission, they were almost dumped. They were dumping grounds. I mean, Planning Commission had become a dumping ground for unwanted officers, or it was some kind of a parking place that, okay, you have a secretary's rank, but wait for 3 months and then go somewhere.
So was it high time for change then?
Well, Planning Commission's role, which was made, the main role was to decide interministerial allocation. Because in Government of India today, when you allocate 5 lakh crores as your planned fund, how to decide how much for industry, how much for education, how much for health, this role, which is being done in many other countries by the Finance Ministry, has traditionally been done by the Planning Commission. Well, if you want this role to be done by the Finance Ministry, then you need to expand Finance Ministry. You need to have another planned finance wing, and all those problems which the Planning Commission was facing, this wing would also face. So therefore, this role has been deleted. So they are no longer deciding allocation. Allocation is being decided directly by the Finance Ministry, just as it is done in the state governments or other countries. Otherwise, they are the same. There is a change in name, or there is no difference.
So it's just a
function.
cosmetic change, like the opposition is saying. Okay,
right.
Okay. Mr. Gopal Krishna Agarwal, would you agree with that? It's just a cosmetic change and nothing more, because NITI Aayog has not been able to bring in that kind of impetus that, everyone was hoping for or everyone wanted to see in a new body like the NITI Aayog?
No, I think there is a big change from the earlier role of the Planning Commission and the NITI Aayog. Earlier, the Planning Commission had been restricted to only assimilating the demands of various ministries and the state government, and then allocating resources according to that was the only role left for the Planning Commission, and that itself everybody agreed that it need to be changed. And from NITI Aayog now that role of allocation, assimilating and allocation of resources to the state that has been taken over by the 14th Finance Commission. So I think that's one of the important change that has taken place. And as it's now an infant. NITI Aayog is a big institution, and there is definitely time lag in what a total outcome or results what it will give. But you see on many initiatives they have done good work. Though people may agree that they have not accomplished the full objective for which this transformation of NITI Aayog was done. We agree that complete objective which the Prime Minister wanted has not been yet achieved. It's not the full term that has completed, but they have moved towards. You see, land acquisition was a very complicated issue, in that when it was very political, it was a sensitive issue, and economically it was required to be changed. Government also tried to change the land laws, but it was not possible because of the parliament and other initiatives. Then a task force was set up in the NITI Aayog, and it has done a lot more initiative onto that area with regard to digitization, land leasing. It has done a good work on that task force. Even with regard to PSU, there is a big complication. What is the objective of PSUs? Whether they should function as a government department or they should work as a commercial organization. There are conflicting viewpoints over across the government and bureaucracy and the general economics. So there also NITI Aayog has done good work with regard to a report on the PSU's way forward. Then there are other digital economy they are taking. Okay. So I think they are doing good work, but some people may say that they have not achieved the full objective. For that they need time.
Drawing your attention to a point that Mr. Saxena was making about how a think tank should be apolitical, should not be inclined towards the government. Are you for an apolitical NITI Aayog?
I don't. Once a NITI Aayog is a part of the government, it can generate ideas, it can give suggestions, it can make policies, but ultimately a think tank has a suggestive role. And if there are initiatives which are good at the government level, how can any initiative by the government you can call it only a political? It's already once a government is elected and it's in place and it's ruling the country, then automatically this process in itself is apolitical. If they have taken initiative with regard to digital economy, which was an initiative of the PMO or Prime Minister, so that's a part of the think tank also. But we agree that they should not restrict to only implementation of the government policies. They should give ideas, take new initiatives, give various other. That's assimilation of various activity that has to take place.
Okay. Mr. Dash, two quick points. Are these ideas, these out-of-the-box ideas coming out as far as the NITI Aayog is concerned? And is it too early, 2 years, is it too early to be critical of the NITI Aayog?
Yes, 2 years is a short period of time for any institution to evolve. That's true, because even the earlier Planning Commission over 50-60 years it evolved and ultimately rendered itself quite useless. So, in institutional life 2 years is nothing. But my point is that, you say, National Institute for Transforming India. After institute also you have a Aayog then added to it. Now this is a big name, and it appears that naam bada darshan thoda kind of scene, that from the beginning, in terms of conceptualizing this particular institute or Ayog, it's been flawed. There was a body that was required to replace Planning Commission. Something was set up without much thinking, and this is what has happened. Now the Planning Commission, as Mr. Agarwal was mentioning, was doing the job of allocation of resources for plan schemes among the states. That's been taken over by the Finance Ministry, that is the government itself. So after that, NITI Aayog was conceived as a think tank. Now Mr. Agarwal says that it's part of the government. So the government, before NITI Aayog came, was the reservoir of all the thinking or the knowledge. And after NITI Aayog has come into being, since NITI Aayog is very much part of the government, the government remains the reservoir of all the knowledge. Because NITI Aayog, other than employing some consultants from outside, has to function within the same bureaucratic governmental situation. So to think that it will come up with out of the box ideas and things like that, we know that the biggest decision in decades, economic, social, political decision, I would say, which is note bandi. Now the banning of the notes, NITI Aayog played no role at all in terms of providing either the input in conceptualizing this and framing this policy of note bandi, or in implementation of it. Of course, belatedly, they have, on second thoughts, taken up this idea of popularizing, digital India, or the digital payment system, and innovating some lottery schemes. So that is what NITI Aayog has come to contribute. If you look at this big decision of the government, that's a landmark decision.
Sure. Fair enough. Yes, I'm coming to you, Mr. Jindal, but Mr. Saxena wants to make a quick point. Yeah.
One misapprehension about the role of the Planning Commission vis-a-vis states. States used to get funds from three different sources. Up to 2013-14, the picture was like this. They would get about 50% of the funds from the Finance Commission, 45% of funds from the central ministries as centrally sponsored programs, and only 5% from the Planning Commission. So Planning Commission's role vis-a-vis states had been diluted in 91 itself after liberalization, and Planning Commission no longer used to decide what scheme states should run. That function has been transferred to the ministries, and ministries are still running SSA and RHM, PMGS5, NREGA, all kinds of programs are being run. So therefore, there has been some change as regards Finance Commission and ministries. Finance Commission's role has been enhanced, ministries' role funds have been diluted, but Planning Commission even then was not in the picture as regards funding the states was concerned. It had a very big role in deciding funds for the ministries of the Government of India.
Indeed.
That I wanted to clarify.
Yes, that's a clarification, and that's a good clarification that you made there and put things into perspective for us. Mr. Jindal, job creation is, a major concern, and, when people are not employed, that leads to the economy, faltering as well. Now, the government had promised 100 million jobs by 2019. Will the NITI Aayog show us the way about how these jobs will be created?
Until now, in the last 2 years, I haven't seen much coming out from NITI Aayog on this. Although they have all round of different kind of programs they are thinking, and different ideas they are coming for improvement and efficiency improvement. But job creation needs special focus, because that's the immediate need of ours. And it cannot be let that it can be handled later. So I would say that it needs special focus and immediate focus on it, so that if jobs gets created, things get into proper place. People who get job, they come into the right line and they start supporting the economy. Until they have jobs, they are lost, they are frustrated, they are in difficult situation. So there, as they should be looking at what the other countries are doing, best practices being followed all over the world, etc. And they should adopt and they must do something about it, because as I look at, it's a thing of very great importance that they should focus on job creation, and then they can help the whole of India by creating such policies, making such suggestions for making those policies which help in creation of job.
Indeed. And as far as the, yes, Mrs. And as far as the industry is concerned, what is it that you expect from a body like the NITI Aayog?
For example, MSME sector can create lot of jobs. So something which can come out, some out of the box idea, which can support MSME, especially when they create job, when they accept more jobs. So policy in those lines which support creation of job and which supports MSME also. They both should get complemented on this, and both should be on a sustainable model to create more jobs and for survival of MSME. This goes very well. MSME sector absorbs lot of jobs, and this is where we need some incentivization. Maybe it is only tax incentivization, that if you give so many jobs, your industry will not be charged at 30%, but it will be charged at 28%. But you must create new jobs.
On the issue of jobs, it is very well established that during 2004 to 2014, that was a period of jobless growth. Hardly any jobs were created during that period. In the last 2 years, present government has tried, given a lot of importance. But what exactly has happened in the last 2 years, that should have been studied by the NITI Aayog. Unfortunately, not NITI Aayog, but World Bank has come out with a study recently showing that progress is dismal. They have very clearly said that programs like Ajivka have not rendered any new jobs and have not created skills at all. It's a failure in program. We have permitted World Bank to criticize us. We have not given this power to the NITI Aayog. That is the problem that we have. It's a bizarre situation. Our own think tank doesn't know anything what is happening in the job front. World Bank is saying, no, you are doing very badly on the job front.
Is it doesn't know or do not want to
well, I do not know.
Disclose the figures?
As I said, that they must come out of this mode that they have to justify government, they have to be PRO. They are a PRO of government, which is not a good thing.
Mr. Agarwal, I know you want to respond to that, but I'd also like talking about criticism. Of course, the RSS's own think tank, in fact, the economic think tank, has come out and criticized the NITI Aayog severely at a roundtable that was held earlier this week. Now, that too needs to be taken seriously, isn't it?
Definitely. I was there in the program I attended 2 sessions of that program. But overall, there were some issues which were concerns were shown in that program with regard to GMCs and other things. But it was on the policy matter of the line of direction where the agriculture sector or health sector is going. There were some views, but there was no, it was a debate in a roundtable discussion where several NGOs and other activists, etc., or economists had come and gave their opinion. It is not a consolidated view that has come out that they have criticized NITI Aayog in particular, but some of the policies. And ultimately, we are in a democratic setup, and it's a healthy criticism of issues that alone will create a good think tank in itself. If we consider NITI Aayog as a think tank and it has come out with some policies, there has to be a counter view or opinion on that. And what is wrong in it? In democracy, you criticize government also, you criticize the institutions. I don't think anything wrong in it. Where we will definitely take into consideration what had been delivered, and our Kisan Morcha president Morcha was also there.
Mr. Agarwal, will criticism from the opposition be taken in the same spirit?
Definitely. We have asked opposition to debate everything in the parliament. On every issue, we are ready to discuss and debate on the issues. There are standing committee. Ultimately, our policies and democracy will evolve only because of that. One point I want to tell is that there is a conflict of objective in the NITI Aayog, as has been mentioned by Mr. Saxena and other people also. So therefore, I think NITI Aayog has done very good initiative in disintegrating its planning into 3 areas. One, a 15 years long-term vision document, then there is a 7 years implementation plan, and then the 3 year short-term action plan. So I think by these 3 levels, already a long-term objective will be achieved. Immediate synchronization of government policies with the thinking of the NITI Aayog is done, and actionable plans will take into consideration what are the shortcomings. So ultimately, NITI Aayog will evolve, and it's an advisory role that has to be taken into consideration.
Sure.
So that's, I think it's an important thing.
Yes.
And NITI Aayog has an important role in the governance.
Indeed. Yes, very quick point, because I'm short of time.
Let me just give an example. Government very rightly asked NITI Aayog to monitor sustainable development goals. Now, for the last year and a half, they have still not produced a single report as to why India did not achieve the Millennium Development Goals by 2015 in respect of gender, health, hunger, or education, sanitation. They should have come up with an analysis. Otherwise, all those constraints will continue, and sustainable development goals will also not be achieved.
Sure, fair enough. I've got about 3 minutes left on the program, so I'd like to get quick closing comments from all my guests. Mr. Jindal, what's the way forward, do you think, really, as far as the NITI Aayog is concerned? How do we make the NITI Aayog stronger and play out its role as it's supposed to?
This meeting which has happened last week was only to define those roles, criticize positively. Any criticism which leads to improvement or transformation, desired transformation, is welcome. And more studies need to be done, and there must be some accountability, some more information coming to people like us in the public, that this is what is happening and this is the roadmap, that by this time they will be able to plan and announce their ideas, etc., so that we can get more feel of what is happening inside.
Sure. Mr. Dash, your final closing comments, the way forward really as far as the NITI Aayog is concerned?
I would say that there is a need for an institution to serve the concept of cooperative federalism, or which the Prime Minister himself calls Team India. Now, with the Planning Commission having gone, the highest decision-making body on development planning, which used to be the National Development Council, where you had all the chief ministers and the central, prime ministers and the central cabinet making that decision, although it met very rarely, but there was a mechanism. I would like to see NITI Aayog to serve a similar Team India concept in some way, number one. Number two, it would be also useful if the NITI Aayog, since it's unable and it suffers from a talent deficit, to come up with any out-of-the-box ideas or help the government with some bright ideas. At least the ideas that are coming from the government, that is government policies and programs, the flagship programs of the government. If NITI Aayog could make evaluation of those programs there and come up with steps that could help deliver those programs on the ground, be it Make in India or take all the flagship programs that we know of, that will be again very useful.
Sure. Mr. Agarwal, quick closing comments from you. I'm completely out of time.
I don't think NITI Aayog should only be reduced to the role of think tank alone. It is part of the governance, and it has a multiple role in its larger portion is think tank, but it has to align with the policies of the government, give them suggestions, and even at the implementation level also it should make plans for actionable plans. So I think NITI Aayog has a very important role and not limited to think tank. Any think tank can be an independent body, like one. It doesn't have to make reports like for any other institution. I think NITI Aayog has multiple role and it is doing its part in that way. It needs to be given
Sure.
time to implement that.
And for doing that,
Mr. Saxena, Mr. Saxena, do you believe that the NITI Aayog will help the government implement
I
some
was
of its
coming to
promises?
this.
Yes.
You know, for doing that multiple role, today the problem which people in the NITI Aayog tell me is that they have no clout. When they call a meeting, no one turns up. They will send some deputy secretary because the clout was with the planning commission because of the fund allocating power. Once you take away that power, NITI Aayog has become a totally toothless organization.
Indeed.
So therefore, you may ask it to do naming and shaming the state, but states, why should the states come to NITI Aayog? Why should they listen to the organization? So therefore, to make it strong, it is important that it should also be given some power of convening various ministries and states.
Indeed. On that note, I'll have to call it a wrap on this edition of The Big Picture. NC Saxena, SK Jindal, Gopal, Krishna, Agarwal and Priya, Ranjan. Thank you so much, gentlemen, for joining me on The Big Picture today and putting things into perspective for us. That's all the time we have. Thank you so much for watching.